Let's go to our second subject of the day. The World Bank has projected about 3.9 trillion revenue savings for Nigeria to enable it to reduce the current fiscal deficit as a result of removal of subsidy on gasoline. World Bank and the International Monetary Fund have both been among the key advocates for removal of fuel subsidy and the floating of the nation's hitherto managed exchange rate regime. Speaking at the presentation of the World Bank report to assess Nigeria's economy over the past 6 months that was released in Abuja this week, lead economist at the bank, Alex Senat, projected that the removal of fuel subsidies will yield fiscal gains estimated at about 3.9 trillion naira in 2023. Senat warned that the subsidy removal will likely lead to a temporary increase in inflation in the coming months, but predicted it will contribute to disinflation in the medium term. Analysts at US-based Bank of America said the Nigerian naira has moved from being overvalued to undervalued, following the government's long-awaited foreign exchange reform. Since Nigeria floated the naira on June 14, the currency has weakened by over 40% compared to the 460 naira per US dollar level it traded before the reform. The Bank of America's fair value estimate of 680 naira means the naira is now 12% undervalued. According to the Bank of America, higher oil exports, which are $12 billion more, and a liberalized import regime, which is $10 billion increase in non-oil imports, can still result in consistent current account surpluses over the medium term, which will boost dollar inflows required to support the naira. For a robust discussion on these headlines, I'm now being joined by a distinguished economist, business strategist, and communication expert, Double Chief Marcel Okeke. He's also former Chief Economist and Chief Sustainability Officer of Zenith Bank PLC, and currently the lead consultant and CEO at Mascot Consult and Communication Limited. Good to have you join this day live, Double Chief Marcel Okeke. Good to have you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruben Abati.
Very quickly, let's go into it. All of the introduction that I have given is about Tinubunomics. What's your take? Is this disruptive? Is this helpful? Is Tinubunomics likely to lead to progress? The Bretton Woods institutions, some people say we shouldn't say Bretton Woods again, World Bank and IMF, have they been helpful? Are they the ones pulling the strings? All the economic policies from forced subsidy removal, taxation regime, and scaremongering about electricity tariff hikes and others, Tinubunomics, within 1 month, what do you think?
Well, thank you very much for this question. Like you said, it's all-embracing and generic. But let's start from where they started, and which is the fuel subsidy removal. But let me say this as a background statement. The people you call the Bretton Woods institutions, let us not be deceived by their figures. They are just conjuring those figures. I call them conjuring. You understand? I'm saying that because there are many variables you have to take into consideration before you start even arriving at those figures. Talking about savings. When you look at the Nigerian system, have we not gone through subsidy removal before for you to be exact when you're talking about how much will be saved in an environment that is known for corruption and all that, and you're arriving at a specific figure that will be saved? Anyway, let me leave that and come back to subsidy removal. Yes, it is a good thing that subsidy is removed. On one hand, I must say, it is good. But on the other hand, this subsidy of a thing is
economists always have two hands.
Let me tell you. No, let me tell you.
Why can't you people just have one hand?
No, let me tell you. It's not a new thing. From discussions, subsidy came into Nigerian, discussion or policy making around 1973, where you had the oil crisis. in the Middle East. You understand? That led to a very high rise in the price of crude oil. So since that time, you have been hearing about subsidy, meaning for 5 decades. And here we are. When it comes to removing it, completely, it came like, I don't know, bam, all of a sudden, it's removed. So now that you know that subsidy has been around for 50 years or thereabout, must it be removed in such a way that is like when we're standing on nothing when it's removed? By that I mean, what is subsidy? Where is it rooted in? Do you understand? So for you to solve the problem of subsidy, you should have started from the root. And the root cause of the subsidy challenge is that we don't have any refinery working in Nigeria. But the truth is that we used to have 4 big refineries in this country. 1 in Kaduna, 1 in Warri, 2 in Port Harcourt. Do you understand? So what happened to them? You understand? And the thing is that because these 4 refineries are grounded for whatever reason by whoever, this economy now depends 100% on importation of fuel or petrol, PMS. Do you understand? So that is the story about fuel subsidy. Now, if you want to remove it, and you know the fuel subsidy being in place was what made fuel or PMS to be sold at the price it's selling. So once you pull it out so suddenly, do you understand? Now, the reality is that the price of PMS moved to 700, 800 per liter, depending on the location you find yourself in this country. Do you understand? And once it goes down like that, this economy is generator economy, meaning that every economic agent, whether you're talking about individuals, households, SMEs, big organizations, government agencies also, we all depend on daily use of petrol, PMS. Do you understand? So when you factor this into the everyday life, do you understand, of these government organizations and individuals and small organizations and all that, some have died suddenly. Do you understand? So you can now imagine the level of damage or damages that have been done, the level of harm that have been done by that singular pronouncement, which means like nobody prepared the economy for the removal of fuel subsidy. The economy should have been prepared for that. Even the Dangote refinery we're all looking forward to. Was it not commissioned by the outgone president, immediate past president? But when is it coming on stream? Nobody is sure. Do you understand? We are not sure. And even if it comes on stream, it's likely to play as a monopoly. And monopoly means that he is in charge of supply. He now dictates the price at which you sell. And that refinery is located where they can operate like any other refinery located in another country, meaning export processing zone. So they are at liberty to produce and be selling to other countries as they sell to Nigeria. Do you understand? So these are the implications. And nobody thought, look, the impact of this withdrawal of subsidy has caused some state governments to tell their civil servants to be coming to work 2 times or 3 times in a week. Several states have done that. That means productivity is going down. It is only that those states told us. Do you understand? That we happen to know. At the federal level, you can imagine the level of absenteeism. People who cannot afford to go to work again. The same thing comes down to individual small-scale organizations. And I know organizations that have shut down to say, let us even see where this thing takes us to.
Okay, Chief Okeke.
Yes.
From my own understanding,
okay,
fuel subsidy removal is already given.
It's given.
Because it's also a matter of law. The PIA, the 2023 Appropriation Act.
Yes.
The issue that has been raised by the World Bank Nigeria Development Update, June 2023, is that, look, Nigeria will be able to save up to about 3.9 trillion naira before December. And that by 2025, Nigeria will have saved 11 trillion.
Yes.
Now, everybody is looking at that money.
Yes.
Government is making more money. Nigerians, well, I don't know whether you fall into our own class, but we ordinary Nigerians, we are losing money. Okay? So at the end of the day, people are saying, how will government spend this revenue?
Thank you.
The World Bank is saying this revenue should be spent on conditional cash transfers for the benefit of the poor and the vulnerable. So what is your advice to government?
Thank you. Let me tell you.
State governments are also putting the IO. State governments. They are saying Section 162 says the money should be shared.
Dr. Abad, let me tell you that at the end of the day, that money might not exist.
Really?
Yes, because let me tell you, even when you come to this subsidy withdrawal, you understand, from which this money is now expected, the savings, do you know that there's the argument whether really there was subsidy in the first place? Because what the NNPC was said to have been doing was called swap, meaning that a particular company somewhere takes our crude oil and refines and sends back to us. Have you not heard that? So where is the subsidy? Where is the subsidy that you are now saying you are removing? You understand? So it becomes, so that's why I told you that those people are conjuring those figures. Do you understand? That shows you what I said. They are conjuring those figures. And let me also tell you, even if those figures exist, the Nigeria that you know, when you put the Nigerian factor in place, you think the whole lump sum will just materialize like that along the line. By the time it goes through wherever it will go through, to get to where it will get to, they do not materialize like that. So they are just, mounting these figures, because like you said, the institutions there, they have always wanted us to go through that direction. And so now that the current government administration has stepped in that direction, they will do everything to be guarding him continue in that direction. And that's why they are parading those figures. It will not materialize. So for me to now be talking about what it will be applied to and what it will not be applied to, I mean, everything looks like theoretical. But let me say, yes, if we have that kind of money, one of the ways it should go to is our sovereign wealth fund. Part of it should go to sovereign wealth fund. Because if you now say you are distributing to the governors and all that, we know what it means. Any money that goes to the governors, they are politicians. And they want to chop today and not look at tomorrow. That has been the problem. Everyone says, it's my turn. Since I'm here now, whatever comes.
It's my turn means Emilokon.
Sorry, I don't know about that. So they say, now that I'm the governor, let us share everything. That has been the problem. When Okeke, for example, was the finance minister, she said she had a running battle with the governors of that time when she was talking about putting something aside, that by way of savings. Do you understand? So, ordinarily, that's what should be done, savings. When you talk about cash transfer, in economics, we call it transfer payment. Because it's not backed up by any production. You are sharing money to people. Do you understand? At the end of the day, you could end up driving off inflation because that is unearned income. Money is being shared to people. And that is where you have corruption of the worst order. Because who is sharing this money to who? And to how many persons at the end of the day?
Well,
you understand?
So Okeke, I understand your skepticism.
Yes.
But after President Tinubu took the decision to remove fuel subsidy,
yes,
are you aware that Angola followed the Nigerian example? In Angola, the open market price for fuel is 530 kwanza, but it was increased to about 300 kwanza. So there is still some subsidy there. But Angola followed the example of Nigeria, which means that there must be a case to be made for the removal of fuel subsidy. As Nigeria has done now, we are providing leadership for Angola in this regard.
No, these two things are not comparable the way you are comparing. Let me tell you, in economics, there's what we call something endowment. That means our natural endowment. This economy, this country is endowed with oil, so much oil deposit. Do you understand? So will we now turn to punish ourselves, punishing our people, simply because we are unable to utilize what God has endowed us with, to be comparing with other less endowed countries and economies? That's the problem. Do you understand? Like yourself, you say, okay, because you have so much of this thing, let me punish myself so that these other people who are not endowed with the same thing with you, that when you look at them, you have to use it. You can't compare that. They're incomparable. Do you understand? The oil deposit we have in this economy and the gas deposit we have here is natural endowment such that our people should be enjoying. I call it enjoyment. And because of the failure of government, the refineries are shut down for years now. Do you understand? And even when they are in that state, some money is still being allocated and some people are still being paid what is called salary or whatever. Do you understand? So given all this, you understand? You can't just pick petroleum price and start comparing with Angola and all that. It doesn't work that way.
But don't you think the conditional cash transfer that is recommended by the World Bank, will help to increase productivity, particularly at the MSME level, micro and small, medium enterprises level, and even at the level of manufacturers?
No, it will not help. Because the truth is that we have gone through this part before. This is not the first time we heard about conditional cash transfer, is it? Even the vice president of this country before, Oshibajo, we have seen him moving around, sharing money like that, sharing 5,000, sharing 10,000, sharing 20,000 and all that. And in this economy now, with the level of inflation, when you give this kind of money, what does it amount to? No, what does it amount to? In fact, what business can you run with it? Is it even enough for you to eat as a person? And not to talk about investing it in any meaningful thing. So it doesn't amount to. And when you come to the politics of sharing, who gets it and who doesn't get? You understand?
Chief Okeke.
So some kind of policies are subjective consideration.
Chief Okeke, the World Bank is not alone. The IMF has given Nigeria, at the board level, 800 million naira loan, social investment.
Yes.
The World Bank has, at board level, approved $500 million. So they seem to have faith in what has happened. The Bank of America has said that the floating of the naira is a good thing. They say our credit rating with Fitch, and others will go up, although they caution that we need to be consistent. Are you saying that all of these international institutions, they are just deceiving us?
Dr. Bati, the problem of this economy is a human being. It's a human problem. It's a man-made problem that we have. So when these bodies you are talking about, mentioned, we have gone through this part before. Because if you remember under Babangida and some other governments, when we consider IMF and the World Bank conditionalities and all that, we go ahead to implement what they say we should implement and all that. But at the end of the day, the human beings, you understand, that put these things in place in this economy, end up directing them in such a way that the intended benefits are never realized. You understand? So that is why when we are saying the same thing this time, it's not likely, because even in the hands of politicians, it's even in the hands of politicians, and you can see what is going on. Somebody was saying, if you want to cut, if you want to reduce costs, where you are saying people should sacrifice more and not more, has government said anything on its own side to cut the cost of governance? Do you understand? So every person is positioning himself or herself somewhere to be part of this system that will share this money. And at the end of the day, you don't know where it will go into.
But the president has a policy advisory committee which has made certain concrete recommendations with regard to taxation, with regard to vehicle ownership, with regard to a number of other measures to drive up revenue, to increase revenue to GDP ratio. You disagree with your colleagues?
Hold on. So, these new policies, there's what we call gestation period and time lag between policy announcement and policy implementation. Everything about this government is new. By the time they go into implementation, that is where you now have the challenges. Do you understand? As a matter of fact, if it wants to use some of the system agencies in place to administer or get these new ideas, work out, they may not work out that way. And should it now go to dismantle, like he has dissolved boards and all that, and to put new persons and all that, it takes time for those persons to sit down, settle down, and, imbibe a new culture, which is what all of us hope that will happen, a new culture that will now be working with clock efficiency, the transparency and honesty that will drive these things so that we realize the intended result. But if you're talking about this system, which has been in place now in the past 8 years, when we went through what we went through, are you sure that we attain those, lofty ideals? I am not as optimistic as you are because of what we know in this system. You understand? So, but the World Bank and I will be saying that because the earlier pronouncements we are saying here appear to be going in the direction they want the Nigerian economy to go. But we have gone through SAP, Structural Adjustment Program. If you look at it, if you break it down, it's IMF World Bank packages.
Well, Chief Okeke,
and what did we get at the end of the day?
Just before we wrap this up,
go ahead.
The World Bank is projecting that if fuel subsidy savings are not properly managed, there's going to be an increase in the number of poor people up to about 7.1 million people.
Yes.
Are you, at least you say you don't agree with their figures, but do you agree with them on that multidimensional poverty is likely to get worse?
I agree with them on the number of people that will be getting poor and poorer. In fact, you can exceed that. Do you understand? Because let me say, the quick pace at which these reforms or announcements are being made on the part of government, do you understand, is such that the extent of damage, do you understand, the negative impact unintended is so much now that certain damages are already irreversible. Do you understand? For example, the level of inflation. What do you think we can do in this economy to bring it back to 1 digit? What do you think in the foreseeable future? What do you think we can do to bring it back to the level of 1 digit? Okay, this naira that is now, the value has crashed. We are talking about the overvaluation and undervaluation and all that. What do you think anybody can do to bring it back to, where we started? 400 and something, which you quoted. Do you understand? And it will rather be crashing up to 1,000 per dollar by the end of this year. Because the truth is that this economy is highly import dependent. When your economy depends on so much on importation, do you understand? You have a weak currency. And so if you do this kind of thing that we did, you will further be weakening your economy for nothing. Because rather, people will be pandering towards holding the dollar, which has a store of value. Naira has no store of value. You can't be investing in Naira terms. Do you understand? That is why you already see what is even happening in the stock exchange. People are somehow moving their money to invest in stock exchange, so that at least their values are in the shares and stocks and all that.
Okay.
Okay.
On that note, I would like to thank you very much. Triple Chief. I used to say double chief. It's now Triple Chief Marcel Okeke, lead consultant CEO at Mascot Consult and Communication Limited, former chief economist at Zenith Bank PLC, former economist on the editorial board of the Guardian newspapers. Thank you very much for joining us.